Hello V, Katogenesis here, and this is a guide to all of the iconic weapons in Cyberpunk 2077. You can expect in this guide for me to show you where to find these unique iconic weapons and what makes them unique. In spite of the quests being semi-open-ended, I did my best to list these weapons by the order of appearance, so you won't have to jump around the video too much, and it'll be easier to recognize spoilers because it's going by progression. That being said, quest-based iconics will be first, and organized crime hustles towards the end, since those iconics are all crafting specs. And lastly, if you're looking to fill out the weapon displays in V's stash, those entries will be marked with an asterisk, as their names come on screen and in the timestamps below. Let's not wait any longer, we have like 46 to go through. Let's do this. The M10AF Lexington, known as Dying Knight, is pretty much handed to you towards the beginning of the game. It is a pretty decent starting handgun, and if you're pretty good at getting headshots, you will get a 50% bonus to them. The Dying Knight also comes with a significant boost to its reload time. For customization, it has a scope slot and a muzzle slot. In order to get the Dying Knight, you basically just have to start the game, and after completing the rescue with Jackie and awakening in V's apartment, the side job called The Gun will start, and you can go and speak to Wilson at the weapons shop just downstairs from you, and he'll give it to you for free when you access his store inventory. This also introduces you to the Iconics system, I guess, reminding you that when you pick up an Iconic, you get crafting specs for them too, to upgrade the rarity as well as just do standard upgrades if you wish to hold on to the weapon a little while longer. Next up is Fenrir, the fiery M221 Saratoga submachine gun. For starters, the SMG has been painted red with a Maelstrom paint job, and for effects, I feel like most all I have to say is it sets enemies on fire. The tooltip itself says deals thermal damage with increased chance to burn, it's a very high chance, has reduced bullet spread, increased bullet impact at the cost of high recoil. For mod slots, it comes with one scope slot, one muzzle slot, and one general mod slot. Being one of the earliest weapons you can get, I highly recommend finding this SMG as soon as possible, no matter what your build. So now onto location and quest for the Fenrir. This can be gained through the side job Losing My Religion. And as far as I can tell, you can do this even before the heist, before the entire map is available to you. In Watson's north side, there's a little market, and it is here that you'll find a monk along the edge panicking. This will start the quest Losing My Religion, where you'll need to save this monk's brother who has been captured by some Maelstrom members to be chromed out against his will. Now the monk specifically asks not to go about this in a lethal way, but this will not affect your ability to get the Fenrir at all, because it lies in the same room as the captured monk on a table. So that is where to find the Fenrir. Chaos, Royce's variant of the JKE X2 Kenshin handgun. This is one of 3 possible weapons that can result from the pickup main quest. I'll get to those details in a bit. So anyway, the stats on the Chaos. The reason this Maelstrom Red Tech pistol is called Chaos is because it has chaotic effects on it. Crit chance, damage type, and status effect application are randomized each time you reload. Adding a bit of fun factor if you like randomized effects on your weapons. Generally, it's a pretty fun thing to use against anyone human or mostly human. Because of this effect, it may not be the best for robots though. For mod slots, it starts with 1 scope slot and 1 general slot. If this is one of the 3 that you are interested in, during the main mission called The Pickup before the heist, when you were sent to All Foods to pick up the flathead from Royce and his Maelstrom goons, any of the results that end up in Royce dying or being incapacitated allows you to loot the chaos from his body. And as a bonus, if you used the malware-laced cred chip without removing the malware and cause Maelstrom and Royce to go hostile, Stout will show up after you leave All Foods, implying that she might do business with you later, opening up the ability to get Sir John Phallustiff too later on. Bear in mind that starting a fight with Maelstrom here will cancel your chances of getting the Doom revolver much later into the game. So the choices are basically get Chaos and Sir John early, or be extremely patient and get the Doom revolver much later. Next is a Liberty handgun known as the Kongou pistol. And in comes the names that are going to be hard to pronounce, so please forgive me butchering them. Kongou is a silver power pistol with magenta accents. I think that's the color magenta. And its item description, it says, thanks to the highest grade mods, the user can take advantage of ricochet technology even if they don't possess the required cyberware. It does have a reduced magazine size, but it's also got a reduced recoil and an increased rate of fire. It also starts with 3 mod slots: scope, muzzle, and general. Because you should see this during the brain dance before the heist, this will both give you something to look forward to once you enter Konpeki Plaza in the heist, and as a reminder, all of your weapons are taken too, so any means of defense is going to be helpful upon your exit. Make sure to get this and the next entry if you intend on collecting all the iconics you can, because I believe Konpeki Plaza becomes completely locked down up here once the heist concludes. Next, and not far from Kongou, but a lot easier to miss, is the Satori katana. This blade has a reduction to its base damage, but a dramatic increase to its critical damage by 500%. It also comes with a melee mod slot, and it fits nicely in your stash display for one of the katanas. To get Satori, this also happens during the tail end of the heist, when everything goes wrong. In your Nobu suite, as soon as you have the chip and T-Bug unlocks the middle window, you can then go upstairs to the helipad on the roof where Saburo came in, and his AV and 2 guards will still be there. Inside the AV is where you'll find the Satori katana. The plan B is another Liberty pistol, the one wielded by Dexter Deshawn, the fixer you work with at the beginning of the game. This silver and gold pistol even has Dex inscribed on the side, as if you could forget. Plan B comes with an increased chance to inflict bleeding status, but also has the unique effect of every shot costing €1 instead of a bullet. So it's a great sidearm if you run out of ammo with everything else, so long as you're not broke. Plan B, like a lot of the other handguns, also comes with 3 mod slots at the start, 1 scope, 1 muzzle, 1 general. At the end of the heist mission, after everything goes south and you report back to Dexter Deshawn, he pulls a Benny on you and pops you in the head with this very gun. After the following Johnny Silverhand sequence, you find yourself trying to dig out of a shallow grave in the junkyard. Once you crawl out of the filth, Dex will be forced by Takamura to then recover your body, and subsequently gets the Benny treatment himself by Takamura. Even though you don't have the freedom to move around during this sequence, Dexter's body will still be here as long as you find where he died, and that would be on the south side of the Badlands. Follow the smell of trash, and you'll find Dex's body. Next up is Skippy, a version of the TKI-20 Shingen with a not-so-standard issue talkative AI. Even though this is the first smart gun on the list, Skippy does not require smart tech in your cyberware to auto-aim to targets. What's more, when you first interact with Skippy, you'll be able to choose between 2 modes, Stone Cold Killer and Puppy Loving Pacifist. The former aiming exclusively at the head, the latter aiming at the legs. So, lethal versus non-lethal. If Stone Cold Killer is your first choice, once you reach 50 kills in that mode, Skippy will eventually speak to you again and permanently switch to the other mode. Whereas if you choose Puppy Loving Pacifist from the start, then reach 50 kills, you'll actually get the option to switch it to Stone Cold Killer mode or continue using it in the puppy loving mode. Also, after that 50 kill trigger is reached, Skippy will get your attention a couple of days later, letting you know who the original owner of this gun is, and asks to be returned to her immediately. At this point, Skippy will no longer be marked as a mission item. Returning Skippy to its original owner will give you quite a few eddies, but Skippy also has a designated spot in your stash display. Do you really want a Skippy-shaped blank space? I don't know, that decision part is up to you. So now where to find this charming and talkative pistol? It's just in an alleyway. In the southeastern section of Haywood. Sometime after the heist, this side job will come up as very high in danger, but there's no enemies here, so you can just go and pick up Skippy. Unless Skippy is the enemy. Like I said, in the alleyway you'll find a corpse that when scanned has a warning that says suspected murder, leave the area to avoid becoming an NCPD suspect, and Skippy in an open case right next to him. La Chingoa Dorada, Jackie's signature pistols, and unique variants of the new. These are power pistols with a reduced reload time, an extra mod slot, and a higher chance to apply burn and stun. Even though the description specifically says there's an extra mod slot, Kongou had 3 also. So I actually don't know how true this is, but 3 mod slots is still good. And that's scope, muzzle, general, as expected. And as part of the signature Valentino fighting style, you will pick up 2 of these gold-plated pistols, one more powerful than the other for some reason. I don't know if this is going to get fixed at some point, but that's how it is at the time of recording. If players were able to dual wield pistols, these would make a lot more sense as weapons, because what you'll have and what you have the chance to get up until this point are all leaps and bounds better when it comes to damage output when you first get them. Out of respect for Jackie, you can upgrade it and use it in his memory, and there is a spot for one of these in the player stash display too. So now where to get La Chingoa Dorada. After V recovers from the heist and awakens in their apartment, there will be a message from Mama Wells to call her, in which she invites you to the ofrenda to pay your final respects to best friend Jackie. It takes place in the bar in Haywood. It's a bit tricky because these pistols don't show up immediately, but instead about a day after the ofrenda takes place. So basically, complete heroes, once you're done paying your respects, wait 24 hours outside of the bar, go back in, then on the table where all the offerings were placed, you can show some disrespect by taking the 2 pistols. I'm only joking about the disrespect thing because the devs were the first one to do it by making Jackie's weapon displayable. And now 05, the first of the few sniper rifles we have access to as iconic weapons so far. A power sniper with explosive tipped rounds. Before experimenting a little more, I had a whole bit going about being collateral-tastic and stuff like that, but there's quite a bit more nuance to the 05. So like the other power sniper on this guide, the 05 will shoot through solid objects to reach its target. However, it seems like the explosive will only go off if you're actually hitting an enemy, and the resulting explosion acts more like a grenade. It also initially comes with 3 mod slots, 1 scope, and 2 general. So now where to get the boss level 05. After the main mission, Playing for Time, where you meet up with Takamura in the diner, I hope you've invested in some gorilla arms or a high body stat, because 05 is a side reward from Beat on the Brat champion of Arroyo. This champion happens to be the grade 8 cheater known as Buck Arnold. When approached, he'll say he's putting everything on the table. There's 2 outcomes that kind of play out the same way and end up with you taking the 05 home. First scenario, approach Buck and use your body stat to ask him to add his rifle to the prize pool. Win the fight, he and his crew will attack you afterwards, and you can take the rifle after putting him down the second time. Scenario 2, ignore the rifle when you approach Buck for the first time, beat him in the fight, and talk a little trash about overcompensation when it comes to the rifle and its size. He and his crew will attack you, beat him down again, you can take the 05. Next is a good one, a propagantastic smart rifle known as Divided We Stand. I can't say much for the message that this rifle is trying to say, but what I can say is that its smart technology can let you target up to 5 enemies at once, while dealing additional chemical damage with a chance to apply poison. Unlike Skippy, the SmartLink cyberware is required for Divided We Stand to actually function as intended. If you just rather not bother with aiming ever and want to clear out groups of enemies fast, Divided We Stand is the one weapon I will recommend every single time. It does feel cheap though, like the game is playing itself. So for some, this might be just worth being a collector's item and that's it. Divided We Stand can be retrieved from the southeast side of Santo Domingo. A side job here will crop up after the heist called Stadium Love, and the place will be pretty hard to miss because it's a giant 6th Street block-wide party that's going on here. If you approach without a weapon drawn, you'll be able to ask to take part in their shooting contest. You can see Divided We Stand just sitting on the table. Not much is preventing you from just killing all of them and taking it. So you can take part in target practice and hope that you get a perfect score, or save scum it, or kill them all and just snag it off the table. Next up is the Scalpel Katana that has a teal handle. Look at that. This blade has an increase to electrical damage and a unique effect paired with certain cyberware. While the Sandevistan CPU is equipped and active, it increases critical chance by 50% and hits apply bleeding. So this sword is specifically for Sandevistan users. If you're not familiar, this is one of the 3 types of CPUs that can be applied by Ripperdoc, but instead of hacking or berserking, this one slows time. So if slow-mo katana slicing is your thing, you'll get some good mileage out of the Scalpel. It also starts with 1 melee mod slot. After the heist and Playing for Time are done, in the Afterlife bar on the south of Watson, there will be a man in here by the name of Dennis who will start you off on the side mission known as Big in Japan. He describes it as transporting cargo, but not exactly what the cargo is, and you find out on site that this cargo is a person, who you'll then need to carry to safety, avoiding or fighting off tiger claws as you go, and finally driving him to Dennis. Do so and they will both thank you, and Dennis will point you to the Scalpel Katana that is now yours. Remembering Chaos, Sir John Phallustiff is the second iconic that can result from the events of the early main job called the Pickup. But a little while after. This is adult toy turned baton. This counts as a blunt weapon, which makes it non-lethal, with looks that match, and its description reads, use as per instructions, remember to get consent. And it comes with one melee mod slot. Now for where to get Sir John. Remember back during the pickup, where Meredith gives you the malware-laced cred chip to use in your exchange for the flathead with the Maelstrom gang. If you're sure to pay for it with the cred chip without removing the malware, that part's very important. Sometime after the heist and playing for time, Stout will send you a message, and if you reply to it, she will give you a place to meet up. Stout contacted me after I finished playing for time and the side job called Human Nature, where you recover V's car. The place that you go to meet Stout is the No-Tell Motel, for an extra bonus in the form of a one-night stand with Stout. Luckily, this is not locked to male or female V, both can get in on some action. And after said action, Sir John Phallustiff will be on the bed. Next up is the neon pink tech pistol known as Lizzie, the unique variant of the Omaha tech pistol. Lizzie fires an extra round per shot, and charging this one will increase the amount of shots fired, releasing a vicious burst of piercing tech rounds when you release the trigger or it's fully charged. This does add quite a bit of recoil as a result though. Now on where to find the easily missable Lizzie tech pistol. This can be gained from the immediate next mission after playing for time, called Automatic Love. This is the mission that starts by contacting Judy and finding out what happened to Evelyn Parker after the heist went south. Automatic Love officially begins when you meet up with Judy in the basement of Lizzie's bar in Kabuki. As you make your way down to the basement, you'll overhear Judy and Susie Q having an argument, which can, as it did for me, draw your attention away from where the pistol is actually located. So once you hit the bottom of the stairs, look left into the darkness. Atop the table will be the Lizzie pistol. Johnny is also standing next to it as you're leaving after you've spoken to Judy. Because the room is dark, and if you don't tap your scanner at the right time, you can miss the Lizzie pistol entirely, but I do believe Lizzie's bar is accessible no matter what stage of the main quests you're in. The cocktail stick will be the next katana available, and it's not only related to the same mission as Lizzie, but is also matching in color. This is an entirely pink katana. Its description reads, looks like a toy, cuts like a laser, and it comes with a nice passive bleed chance, without the need for perks. It comes with a single melee mod slot too. As for the location of where to get the cocktail stick, this is also gained through the main mission Automatic Love, when Judy sends you to investigate Evelyn's disappearance at the Clouds dollhouse in Japantown. So once you get up into the tower, after making an appointment with one of the dolls, getting in and getting up into the VIP section, your next goal would be to get into the employees lounge, ideally undetected, then take the following door to the dressing room, where you'll find some clues left by Evelyn and the bright pink cocktail stick on the desk. Unlike the situation with Lizzie, I don't believe the cocktail stick is obtainable after you've come and gone from Clouds, so this may be the only window you have to get this katana. Now is a good time to mention the unobtainable weapon, or at least currently unobtainable, known as Death and Taxes and or Second Opinion. It is an iconic version of the new handgun that the strategy guide says it's in Maiko's office, the one right next to Woodman's, in the employees area of Clouds. Even though it says this is the time to get Second Opinion, Maiko's office is not accessible at all during Automatic Love, and when you do access it later when you're breaking in with Judy, there is no pistol in her office to speak of. Right now, it's just up in the air as to whether Second Opinion, aka Death and Taxes, is cut content, or if it was meant to be added, but just isn't accessible to players unless they use console commands. Next up is Cottonmouth, a cane for bludgeoning with a serpent on the handle. And this thing is vicious for a blunt weapon. Description says electrically charged and tipped with venom. It deals electrical and chemical damage with a small chance to apply poison and or shock. It says small chance, but the one I picked up has a 25% poison chance and 10% shock chance. This is a one-handed club, so you can swing it relatively fast. It's safe to assume any human you hit with the Cottonmouth is not going to have a good time. It also starts with one melee mod slot. Now for the location of the Cottonmouth, this is in Doc Finger's Ripperdoc Clinic. After Automatic Love, another main job by the name of The Space in Between will start, and it involves V continuing to work with Judy to find out what happened to Evelyn. The clues lead you to Doc Fingers on Jig Jig Street, and when you all go into his room to interrogate him, the Cottonmouth will be on his bed. I did also notice that his room was open and the Cottonmouth was on his bed before even starting the quest, since it is relatively easy to find, being it is a Ripperdoc Clinic that's marked on the map pretty much forever, and not far from the fun side of town. Something I do do also want to mention about Doc Fingers is that if you are rough with him, he won't offer Ripper services to you anymore. This is just a little heads up because Fingers, despite being a S-rank dirtbag, he sells legendary cyberware that no other Ripper Doc does. Thank goodness we're getting into more rifles. This is the Widowmaker, a tech precision rifle, a unique version of an M179 Achilles, with a cool blue paint job and some additional fun effects, Raff and Shiv style. This rifle fires double projectiles per shot and will deal chemical damage with an increased chance to apply poison. Charged shots deal more damage, but it's a tech rifle, that makes sense. It starts with 2 mod slots, 1 scope, 1 for general. Tech weapons are already absurd with their ability to punch through solid objects to hit your target. An over 30% chance to poison is ridiculous. You're probably going to make a lot of widows. You monster. Have fun. But I can assure you that you're not going to be as monstrous as the person who has this gun in the first place, and that is Nash of the Raff and Shiv clan. As a lot of you know, I'm sure, the main jobs split up into 3 different paths after you complete playing for time. The first is the Automatic Love Chain. The second is the Ghost Town Chain, where you go to help out Pan Am Palmer. This mission starts in the Afterlife, where you ask Rogue for help. She requires some investment and for you to prove yourself after the disaster that was the heist. Rogue will connect you with Pan Am Palmer, who also had a situation where things didn't go so well in her last mission. V and Pan Am like peas in a pod. So you and her head out into the Badlands to retrieve both her ride and cargo, after which you have the option, and it is an option, to go to the Raff and Shiv hideout and kill off Nash. Bear in mind that if you tell Pan Am no, he won't be there later. Agree and you'll beeline to that Raff and Shiv camp, make as much noise as possible, and have an intense shootout as the cherry on top for Ghost Town. Nash will be among the Raff and Shiv here. Afterwards, loot his body, and the Widowmaker is yours. Now we take a long jump to the Problem Solver submachine gun, another unique M221 Saratoga. Remember, Fenrir is one as well. And if we are comparing the two, Fenrir is still better. The Problem Solver doesn't really have a special description at all, so my guess is it's just a basic, more powerful variant of the Saratoga SMG. But if that is the case, that makes the Fenrir comparably much, much better. The Problem Solver also starts with a scope, muzzle, and general mod slot. Now, where to get one, maybe even 2 of them. I got 2 myself. So this is after you've helped out Pan Am and she decides to help you in Life During Wartime capturing Anders' helmet. Pan Am will call sometime after it concludes asking for your help, triggering the side job with the Nomads, Riders on the Storm, in which you must save the Aldecaldo's leader, Saul, from the Wraiths who captured him. When you and Pan Am arrive at the Wraiths camp in the Badlands, look for the Wraith that's a little bit bigger than the others near the front gate. He has the Problem Solver equipped, but because of this, I was able to loot it off of his body and off of the ground. So maybe you'll end up with 2 Problem Solvers as well. It's really too bad we can't dual wield, huh? But this is also not the only iconic in Riders on the Storm. Next, and not a disappointment at all, is the Overwatch SPT-32 Grad. This is the second iconic power sniper rifle, and I like this one a little bit better than the 05 myself, but not by much. The description of the Overwatch is just as impatient as Pan Am. Increases reload speed, comes with a custom silencer. Yes indeed, this tank shredder is also quiet somehow. And while it wasn't in the description, just like the 05, it does punch through solid objects like a tech weapon would. And people, if you can line them up, which you can pretty easily when they don't know where you are. For mods, Overwatch also starts with a scope and general mod slot. The last entry where we talked about the Problem Solver and how underwhelming it is, towards the end of that same side job, Riders on the Storm in the Badlands, after you, Saul, and Pan Am escape the Wraiths through a sandstorm and take shelter in an abandoned house, the next morning, Pan Am will give you the Overwatch as a form of thanks. If it wasn't for the iconic backdrop, Stinger would look like any other old knife, but proves to be more deadly than most, with additional chemical damage and a moderate chance to apply poison, moderate being 40%. Knives are DPS weapons, so if your organic target is still alive after a few slashes and stabs, the poison will likely take care of the rest. The Stinger also starts with a single melee mod slot. There's a short window in which you can gain Stinger through the Aldecaldo's quest chain, because the one who gives it to you is indisposed for the rest of those quests. After the main job, Life During Wartime, where you get Anders' Helmet with Pan Am's help, the Aldecaldos also suffer some casualties in the process. Eventually, Mitch will message you about a funeral that the Aldecaldos those are holding for their fallen, showing up at their camp before Queen of the Highway, which is a later side job with Pan Am, and meeting up with Mitch will start the side job I'll Fly Away, during which you and Mitch go give Scorpion his final send-off. After you help with this, Mitch hands you a figurine named after something trying to avoid copyright and the Stinger knife. Like I said, be sure to help Mitch out with this after he messages you and before Queen of the Highway, because after that you won't be able to do it. Tsumetogi is yet another katana, one with a yellow handle this time, and that is specialized for dealing electrical damage. As it states, slightly increases electrical damage, grants a small chance to apply shock to the enemy, and non-standard attacks deal more damage. I'm guessing that last bit refers to power attacks. Despite electrical damage implying that it's going to do more damage to robots, which you should expect, there are some humanoid enemies, like Valentinos and Maelstrom, who are also more susceptible to shock damage. So thankfully, Tsumetogi is not a laser-focused specialized weapon and can be used more broadly. So now on how to get it, and this is a short time span in which you can grab the Tsumetogi, and we return back to the Mox and Judy's side quests. After the main job, Double Life, is completed, where you do finally find Evelyn Parker, eventually you're led into the side job called Pisces, where you, Judy, a few dolls from Clouds, and Maiko will all work together to free Clouds from the tight grip of the Tiger Claws. At the top of the H8 Mega Building, where you meet up with the bosses and Maiko, you then have the choice to go along with Maiko's new plan, or kill the bosses and Maiko along with them. Tsumetogi is on display in the center table in this room, and should be lootable after dialogue takes place. After the sequence, you can loot it from the display, or Hiromi's body after it's been thrust into him. A side note, if you do go along with Maiko's plan, going against what Judy intended, be sure to refuse payment from Maiko if you want to get the Mox shotgun later, which does have a place in the stash display of your apartment. This is the cattle prod, or electric baton gamma, known as Tinkerbell. This is categorized as a one-handed club and says it does less damage than usual, but has a chance to knock out a target using a strong attack. For those not familiar, knockout works independently from the rest of the damage types and is just an instant KO. Now, I don't know what the chance is, but it seems to be pretty high. And because of this effect, as blunt weapons go, being non-lethal already, this is one of the most effective and powerful thanks to this effect. Tinkerbell also starts with one melee mod slot. Now for the location of the Tinkerbell, this is when things start getting pretty mixed up in the quest department, but I tried to order this as best as I can. After getting to Pisces in the side job quest chain with Judy, you'll get a call from one Elizabeth Peralez. Starting the quest I Fought the Law, and after you complete that, you will then be connected to River and his side quests. He will contact you for help after a day or two, and eventually lead you to the side job known as The Hunt. I'll have this on screen so you can follow where the quests are in sequence. During the hunt, you and River will go to an abandoned farm out in the Badlands, in search of Peter Pan, the child kidnapper. Beware of lots of security measures, and in the house off to the right, which you can access through a side window, you'll be able to go upstairs and disable the security, and if you press the hidden button underneath the desk, a side panel will open up, and inside will be the Tinkerbell. We're not done with River yet, because we have to deal with his revolver known as Crash. This is an Overture power revolver with a custom grip, a zigzag design along the barrel, has a designated spot in your player's stash display, and has fun effects to match its uniqueness. Crash has a mild charging effect, kind of like a tech weapon, but doesn't have the wall punching capabilities. However, if you do hold the fire button while aiming, Crash will go into full auto mode. That's right, a full auto revolver. And if you're concerned about doing a backflip as you're doing this, don't worry, because it has a decrease to recoil and bullet spread too. The only downside to all this is that it's got a reduced fire rate, but that doesn't take away from its full auto capabilities at all. Crash starts with 4 mod slots too: scope, muzzle, and 2 general. As to the location of the Crash revolver, you're led to it now that you're invested in River's side quests. Immediately after the hunt, the one where you find Tinkerbell, a day or two later, River will contact you again, triggering the side job following the River. You'll meet at Joss's place on the edge of the Badlands for a cookout. And that's pretty much all it is. Not much for conflict, just having fun, hanging out, eating some good food. But the dialogue may change depending on if your character has male or female body types, because he does have a crush on female V. He's a romance option. But no matter what, at the end of the night, when you and River go to the water tower to stake out or make out, he will hand you the Crash as a gift. Shotgun users, the Mox is going to be your first by appearance. Well, maybe. It's a process to get this Budget Arms Carnage shotgun. And just in case you forget, it does have a Mox stamp on the side. The Mox first states that it is suited for high reflexes, has a low reload speed, and has a modded barrel that reduces spread while aiming. Unfortunately, that is two negatives and a positive, and the positive, in my mind, is not too good. The one I got, I believe, is pretty universal across the board, came with a burn damage chance too. If all the pellets hit your target at a 3% chance, and they don't die immediately, because it is strong up close, they have a decent chance of being set on fire, which is nice, but many other iconics up till this point have better damage over time at a distance and up close. And I found out on my first character that the need for high reflexes affected the recoil of the weapon. If you don't have a reflexes of 6 or higher, the Mox will basically fly off screen when you fire it. I don't know, maybe I just didn't experiment with the Mox enough, but it leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to shotguns, especially compared to the one that comes later in this guide. One more thing before the location, this is one that goes in the display in your apartment stash. So if for no other reason, it is worth collecting just so you can have it on display. When retrieved, the Mox also comes with a single general mod slot. The required quests for this shotgun to appear are first, Pisces, where you help Maiko and Judy deal with the cloud situation. I Fought the Law, where you meet Elizabeth Peralez, and by extension, River Ward. And finally, Pyramid Song, Judy's final side mission. Pyramid Song, like Following the River, is your window to romance Judy if your character is running a female body type, but whether romantic or not, getting the Mox only relies on completing this mission. So, at the very end of Pyramid Song, Judy gives you biometric access to her apartment, where you can go, hang out with Judy and chit-chat for a bit, rest if need be, but the main thing is that you have access to the apartment now. Over the course of the rest of the game, Judy will periodically send you messages related to her trip up north or her staying in Night City, depending on how close your bond is. After roughly 4 or 5 messages like this, return to her apartment and the Mox shotgun should be on the kitchen counter. This is Ozob's nose, and it is a bit of a weird one all the way through, because the crafting spec itself says they have homing, but in use, I definitely did not have a homing effect at all. If I understand correctly, at least as of launch, rarity of grenades does not affect damage whatsoever, but just how those grenades act. Common and uncommon with standard arc, rare is sticky, and epic is homing. Because this is the only legendary grenade that I could find and that I know of, there might have just been an accident somewhere where it didn't apply those effects after Ozob's nose was crafted. So in regards to damage of frag grenades being the same across the board, and the supposed homing effect being missing after you craft it, what's left? The aesthetics. The grenade is a bright red, like Ozob's nose, and the explosion after being thrown is purple rather than yellow, with a shower of confetti immediately after. So for damage, I wouldn't say that this is worth your crafting materials at all, and it does take regular frag grenades to make too. But if spectacle is the only thing you're going for, and you have the legendary crafting materials to spare, it is entertaining and worth it in that sense. So let's go over where to find the crafting spec for Ozob's nose. After the main job, Transmission in Pacifica, where you work with the Voodoo Boys to contact Alt Cunningham beyond the Black Wall, after that you'll receive a message from someone named Ozob to call him. Do so and it starts the side job Send in the Clowns, a short pickup and transport side job. Once that is complete, a day after, Coach Fred will contact you with another Beat on the Brat objective, this being a new optional challenger in Pacifica, nearby the old mall. This new challenger is Ozob Bozo, the very clown you helped out prior. Defeat him and the reward will be a good amount of eddies depending on how much you bet, and the crafting spec for Ozob's nose. Now for another JKE-X2 Kenshin tech pistol known as Apparition. Only available if you have chosen the Corpo Lifepath, but before you start the game all over again, know that it's not terribly great, especially if you like keeping V healthy and upright. The Apparition states it monitors the user's vitals when health level is critical, fire rate, reload speed, and damage are increased. Charged shots deal twice as much damage. I think this all falls under the umbrella of being at critical health though. What's more, as I was testing the Apparition and getting my character down to critical health, where the overlay starts getting all scrambly, damage didn't seem to be affected much at all, let alone the rest of the things it's supposed to do. Perhaps my character's health wasn't down far enough, there was something I was missing during testing, or it doesn't work as intended. So at its base, case, the Apparition leaves a lot to be desired, but it is still a iconic, therefore collectible. At the start, it comes with a scope slot and 2 general mod slots. So now for the location, as I said, you do need to be of the Corpo Lifepath background and need to have completed the transmission main job, the one that involves your last interactions with the Voodoo Boys. A day or so after transmission has completed, an automated message from Frank Nostra will contact you. This is the Frank from way back in the prologue, saying he's got dirt on Abernathy, starting the side job, War Pigs. Frank's reaction to V will be determined by how you interacted with him during the prologue. If you took the time to speak to him back then, you will have the option of talking him down. But you can only get the Apparition if your exchange takes a violent turn. You'd probably be doing Frank a favor anyway. Take Frank out by whatever means necessary, and the Apparition will be on Frank's body. Now for another beastly smart weapon, this time an Arasaka branded SMG, the prototype Shingen Mark V. This white and red Arasaka made submachine gun fires target seeking explosive rounds, but not the same explosives as the 05 explosive sniper. These rounds are guaranteed to explode no matter what they hit, rather than the 05's only enemies rule. The automated targeting for the prototype Mark V guides bullets to up to 3 targets while aiming. This also gets picked up as a legendary as far as I know, so there are no crafting specs that come along with it because there's no rarity to go above legendary. Most you could take away from this though is that if your enemies are hiding behind anything that can explode, vehicles included, they will explode. And I don't know if this comes standard, but mine also had a 10% burn chance on top. So if enemies do survive and are not horribly maimed, they could be on fire too. As a final bonus, the prototype Shingen Mark V starts with 4 general mod slots. So if you've been saving up some crunch mods or can craft them yourself, this is the place to use them. Now on where to find this legendary iconic smart SMG, this one is found during the mission Gimme Danger, in which you go with Takamura to an Arasaka warehouse in Rancho Coronado to plant a virus in the parade floats systems in preparation for the upcoming parade. You and Takamura at the start go through different methods on how to infiltrate the area without being detected. Going in guns blazing is doable too, especially if you find the prototype Shingen within. So where you'll find it is actually outside of the warehouse itself. Out front, there are a couple of loading docks with containers out front. The prototype is inside of the container closest to the west entrance, marked 667, that has an explosive surprise inside right before you reach the case that contains the prototype Shingen Mark V. The next 2 iconics are found during Play It Safe. This is the next main mission. First, we'll start with Genjiroh, an iconic HJKE-11 Yukimura smart pistol, similar make to Skippy, but without all of the banter. The rounds per shot for the iconic version of this weapon have been increased to 4, as well as increases to its magazine size, projectile speed, and the amount of targets, which has gone up to 6. Bullets from the Genjiroh also deal electrical damage with an increased chance to apply shock. As long as you have the smart targeting cyberware, the Genjiroh will be an extremely powerful addition to your smart weapon arsenal. Oh, and it starts with 2 general mod slots too. Now for where to get the Genjiroh, and as of launch, there are actually 2 different locations to get it, but we'll start with where you're most expected to discover Genjiroh. In Japantown, where you and Takamura are teaming up once again for the Play It Safe main job, the main mission where you infiltrate the parade. Your objective here is first to take out the 3 snipers. After you've dealt with the first sniper, you have an option of going up or down. But to get the Genjiroh, you're going to want to go up, back into the crowd, and to the elevator. Take this elevator up to the highest balcony, and then as you step out, there will be a small maintenance room off to the right, with a stash blocked by a gate inside. If you don't have the technical ability to force the door open, there is a keypad near the entrance of this maintenance room too. Punch in 2906 on the keypad, then press open, and Genjiroh will be free to grab off of the shelf next to the case. Now I'll quickly go over the second place where to find this handgun. In the North Oak region of Westbrook, where a lot of the rich and powerful live, you'll come up here a couple of times due to Johnny's side missions. But I want to draw your attention to the Arasaka property here, across from Denny's house. Only one of the instances of endgame will take you here, but you can still trespass, and better still, you can access the house. The gate and walls are high up and are easily vaulted over with assisting cyberware, but if you don't have that cyberware for whatever reason, there is a convenient step step-shaped rock formation along the outside wall on the right side. Just save before you use them, since rock faces are generous with lethal fall damage. Once getting past the wall, the next step is to get to the building itself, avoiding shooting, slashing, or smashing your way there, and entering the first floor. Straight ahead will be 3 sets of doors. Head in the one on the right next to the fire extinguisher, and upon the desk in this office will be the second Genjiroh pistol. Now for the second Arasaka katana that goes in your display, the Jinchu-Maru with a customized guard, an Arasaka branding on the blade, of course, and this katana is built for slow-mo slicing. It boosts your crit chance to 100% while Korenzakov is active. Korenzakov is cyberware for the nervous system that triggers a slow time effect while attacking, aiming, or blocking while sliding or dodging, something you're probably doing a lot while wielding blades anyway. Even if you don't have Korenzakov, the Jinchu-Maru does have more to offer, which are your last strike in a combo deals double damage and doubles damage against enemies with twice your current health. So unlike the Apparition, the risks with the Jinchu-Maru are made worth the reward in the damage numbers you're going to generate quickly, and doing things in slow-mo is automatically more badass, and hopefully yours comes with the extra effect of bleeding chance plus 15% too. Outside of that, it starts with 2 melee mod slots. Now for the location of the Jinchu-Maru, and it is not far from where you retrieve the first Genjiroh that I mentioned. This is also during the main mission, Play It Safe, high above the streets of Japantown during the Arasaka parade. But this iconic is almost impossible to avoid because it is looted off of Oda, the boss fight close to the end of Play It Safe. This boss fight takes place after you've taken out all 3 snipers and pull the plug on the Netrunner. Defeat Oda, and with the Genjiroh pistol he's actually made pretty trivial, and you'll be able to loot the Jinchu-Maru katana off of him afterwards. The Malorian Arms 3516, aka Johnny's gun. But instead of just wielding it in Johnny's memories, V can take the wheel on this one. The legendary power pistol of a legendary rocker boy, but without much to say when it comes to its flavor text and description. While this is in fact totally unique in looks, it also has multiple reload animations. I think it has like 3 or 4, completely unnecessary, but adding to the cool factor. Props to the animators. It definitely gets attention, but what I'd like to draw attention to now is the extra damage effects. It says it deals extra thermal damage, but without a chance to ignite. My guess as to what this thermal damage is referring to is the quick melee attack, which shoots a short-range burst of fire. Now, whether or not the thermal damage only applies to the quick melee effect or all of the damage that comes out of the Malorian Arms, I have no idea. Oh, and it's also worth mentioning, like a lot of the iconic power weapons, Ricochet is alright, but it should also be mentioned that this does punch through solid objects too. And because of its nature of being a legendary, it does come with 4 general mod slots, and no need for a crafting spec because it's already legendary, but it can be upgraded through regular means. In case you don't feel like wielding this immediately or hanging on to it, there is a special place in the stash display in V's apartment for Johnny's gun, standing out from the crowd just like Johnny. On to where to retrieve the Malorian Arms 3516 and Johnny's Porsche, if you want. After the events of the main job, Search and Destroy, where you and Takamura try to convince Hanako that not everything is as it seems with the Arasaka dynasty, Johnny will start you on the side job, Chippin' In, during which Johnny asks you to give him control so he can track down Atom Smasher. A long night and a hangover later, Rogue will contact V about a day after that, meet up at the Afterlife, and head towards the docks in Northside. Near the end of Chippin' In, you confront none other than Atom Smasher's lackey, Grayson, on the ship known as the Ebenika. Put a stop to Grayson and the Malorian Arms will end up in your arms. If you're after the Porsche too, spare Grayson's life and he will give you the key to access the container that it's in. This won't be the last time we're at the Ebenika though, because we do have to get into Atom Smasher's vault. However, the requirements for it are dumb and involve the ending quests. Now for one of the most long and drawn out and ridiculous to acquire, the Doom revolver. Dum Dum's power revolver. First and foremost, this fires 4 projectiles per shot. Not 4 rounds, otherwise the cylinder wouldn't work right. So it's 6 shots, and each being 4 projectiles. It has increased damage, rate of fire, and chance to dismember at the cost of increased recoil and bullet spread. The last of the description reading highly dangerous, highly messy. And all of this is true. The only thing that makes it unlike any other power weapons mentioned prior is that it actually doesn't punch through solid objects. But because Doom Doom does operate like a shotgun anyway, it's best to use it at mid to close range for the most effective amount of hits. It is not a precision weapon, but it is extremely powerful, worth the wait, and worth sacrificing to other iconics. For that, I am certain. So now for how to get the Doom Doom revolver. And as it's a distant memory at this point, you may recall that I mentioned the Doom Doom revolver way earlier in this guide, because this is the third iconic tied to the pickup way back in Act 1, where you and Jackie work to deal with Maelstrom to get the flathead. In order for Doom Doom to even appear, you need to ensure that you and the Maelstrom gang are on good terms when you leave the All Foods premises. That means turning your back on Stout and paying for the flathead with your own money, or paying with the cred chip after you get rid of the malware. If you leave All Foods and Royce and Dum Dum are still alive in the garage and Brick is nowhere to be found, then you've made the right choices for Doom Doom to appear. With this choice though, you will forego getting the Chaos Pistol and Sir John Phallustiff, so that is something you should consider first. Fortunately, none of these go in the stash display anyway. So with those choices made, we come all the way back to now, after the main job, Search and Destroy, very close to the end of the game, during the Second Conflict side job where you're getting Johnny's band back together. In the first portion of Second Conflict, you go to meet up with Nancy, or Bess Isis, at the Totentance, which is an underground Maelstrom club. This is in the north side area of Watson. After a rather entertaining elevator ride, you will be greeted at the front doors to the dance floor by none other than Dum Dum, the soon-to-be former owner of Doom Doom. After some convincing, he will take you to Royce and Nancy during their interview, and after Nancy throws a choice your way as to how to leave with the info that she's gathered. That would be guns blazing or sneaking out. Either way, you're gonna have to take out Dum Dum for his revolver, so do that. And you should find it on his body or on the floor. And the rest of Maelstrom here will be great target practice for your new firearm. Another weapon granted from the saga of Johnny Silverhand's side quests is the gold-plated baseball bat. It is an iconic baseball bat that happens to be gold. Who knew? It keeps its blunt weapon damage type, but the description reveals that it's infused with Denny's Rage, with a high chance to apply bleeding, but a low chance to apply stun. This high chance for bleeding is 90%. And if you're concerned with being lethal about things, I will remind you that any damage over time is non-lethal, including bleeding for some reason. So the gold-plated baseball bat is a non-lethal weapon all the way through, with an insanely high chance of damage over time on top of its bludgeoning power. It also starts with a melee mod slot. As I said before, this is gained through the Johnny's saga of side quests started from Chippin' In, which has 1 to 2 follow-up quests, Blistering Love and Holding On, which then lead to Second Conflict. The second part of Second Conflict takes place at Denny's place in North Oak, Westbrook, and ends up becoming a choice between Denny and Henry and who makes the final cut for Samurai's final performance. Once the decision for either Denny or Henry is made, Denny will then turn around, walk away, and toss her gold-plated bat into the pool now filled with concrete. Archangel carries custom Malorian Arms Overture revolver. Malorian is inscribed on the gun, along with its beautifully etched barrel. Archangel's description states that it deals electrical damage with a chance to apply stun and has significantly reduced recoil. It has a ×2 headshot damage multiplier and a really high crit chance. The Archangel is a crit machine. And as a reminder, just because it does shock damage does not mean it is useless against humans, because some humans have a lot of cyberware, like Maelstrom and Valentino's, and Archangel would be extra effective against them. For mod slots, Archangel starts with Scope, Muzzle, and General. Archangel also has a dedicated space in your stash display. Alike Supreme is where the members of Samurai meet up in Arroyo Santo Domingo and put on a final concert. And this is more cutscene than side job, but at the end of it, when Johnny gives the seat back to V, you'll be sitting right next to Carrie, at which point he will hand you the very Archangel he pointed at you after breaking into his house. Real quick, here is the endgame spoiler warning. I didn't expect all of you to do all of the endings of the game, so this is your warning to skip ahead to this timestamp to the final 8 iconics that are from optional objectives that all have a nice nook on the right wall of your display. You have been warned because these next 5 are directly tied to ending quests. Abandon all sense of discovery, ye who watch from here. This is the last of the Overture revolvers, known as the iconic Amnesty. It is actually similar in looks to the Crash that you were given by River, but not quite as powerful, at least when it's handed to you. I got the Amnesty multiple times through multiple playthroughs just to see if the stats would roll any higher, and they stayed pretty low, as you can see on screen. But the description reads, Cassidy's mods improve this revolver's handling and firepower, making this the most lethal revolver in the Wild West. That is true, as long as you're sacrificing your valuable components to upgrade it for the short time you get to use it. You also get crafting specs alongside the Amnesty to up its rarity, but because it's marked as a quest item the entire time, the crafting menu pretends that it's not even there. So in my case, I wasn't able to increase the rarity at all and had to rely on raw, expensive upgrades and damage mods to increase Amnesty's damage to a decent amount. So if you'd like this revolver to be usable when it's given to you, unless it's fixed, raw upgrades and weapon mods are how to do it. If not, it's probably going to take a lot of shots to take out Militech and Arasaka. So, the location of the Amnesty. If you've created a friendship or a relationship with Panam by the ending quests of the game, during your rooftop decisions with Johnny, you'll be able to choose to request help from the Aldecaldos and have them help you raid Arasaka Tower, triggering the main jobs We Gotta Live Together and Forward to Death. During We Gotta Live Together, the night before the raid, you have the chance to hang out with the other Aldecaldos before you meet Panam on the cliff above camp. Look for Cassidy along the edge of camp, hanging out near his truck and practicing his shooting with some bottles, and he'll offer you a shooting challenge. Cass's challenge is that you shoot 12 bottles in 15 seconds. Do it successfully and he just hands you his revolver. Like I said, upgrade it if you plan to use it, because unlike the Aldecaldo jacket that you do get after the credits roll, the Amnesty doesn't follow you. But this might be changed later, who knows? And now for the godlike Prejudice. A legendary, iconic HJSH Masamune is just too strong for the rest of the game, with an orange finish, and it only needs one effect to make everyone happy. And the description is short and sweet. Piercing projectiles. Yes, the 3-shot bursts that come out of the Prejudice ignore obstacles with Prejudice, letting you also line up your targets like dominoes and take them all out with one squeeze of the trigger. If that wasn't enough, it can be assumed that the damage rolls you're going to get on this rifle are going to massively exceed much of what you'll have up to this point of the game. And if it's not, it's got a full 6 mod slots to work with. 1 scope, 1 muzzle, and 4 general to pump the damage even higher if you want. And just as a heads up, you shouldn't need to. The only downside of the Prejudice is a pretty huge one and is tied to the quest that it's a part of. So let's go over location. When you trigger the point of no return, Nocturne OP55N1, the Meet Hanako and Embers mission, later on Misty will take you to the rooftop where you'll have a talk with Johnny and decide how you're gonna go about taking on Arasaka. One of your options is letting Johnny take over, and he and Rogue will raid Arasaka just like old times. And this is the route you need to take to get Prejudice, kicking off the 2 end jobs, For Whom the Bell Tolls and Knockin' on Heaven's Door. When you, as Johnny, meet up with Rogue, have a bit of a makeup sesh, and Johnny awakens, you're led to some handy gear behind the bar of the afterlife. Among this gear is the Prejudice Assault Rifle. Now I'll reveal the sad part about Prejudice after the credits roll and you have the chance to go back and play more of the game before the point of no return. Other quests will let you keep some of the iconics, but that's not the case with the Prejudice. So enjoy it while you can. There are some you do get to keep from the Rogue path, so let's move on. The Caretaker's Spade, which is a 2-handed hammer iconic. Despite it clearly having the blades of a gardening tool, it is still a blunt, therefore non-lethal weapon. And the description even mentions that it might be a reference to The Witcher, because it resembles an ordinary shovel from a different dimension. It's got a high critical damage boost as well as a bleeding chance, and unlike pretty much all melee weapons in the game, a stamina cost reduction for swinging. It shows up as a legendary and comes with 3 melee mod slots. Even though it does come with the stamina cost reduction and a variety of nice effects, it does swing pretty slow, but if you have built your character for blunt melee attacks, it probably will only take 1 swipe to take out someone with the Caretaker's Spade, which I enjoyed using against Adam Smasher, so there you go. But now when it comes to its location, it is quite difficult to spot To get the Caretaker Spade, you'll need to either take Hanako's path to Last Caress and Total Immortal, or Rogue's path for Whom the Bell Tolls and Knockin' on Heaven's Door. Both of these quests end up in the conference room of Arasaka Tower, and it is in said conference room where the Caretaker Spade is well hidden, thanks to flashlights not being standard cyberware. From the main conference table off the platform to the north is a path and some rocks among the trees here. Leaning up against these rocks will be the Caretaker's Spade. Again, real well hidden, as I myself missed it several times. Now for Rogue's handgun, known as Pride. Pride and Prejudice, get it? Yeah, you get it. This is a iconic handgun that you do get to keep after the credits roll and you decide to keep playing, and while it's not a rifle that pierces through everything, it does do a ton of headshot damage. The description reads, "The Pride of Rogue increases crit chance and headshot damage with a small chance to apply stun." Since this also shows up as a legendary at the very end of the game, it has a full 6 mod slots too. 4 general, a scope slot, and a muzzle slot. Now for the location of the Pride, this is Rogue's Pride pistol, but how to get it is not ideal if you like Rogue. So Johnny and Rogue raiding Arasaka Tower during the final mission for Whom the Bell Tolls, and then leading into Knockin' on Heaven's Door. When you get to that point and face off with Adam Smasher, Rogue will give you a head start in the fight, but also sacrifice herself in doing so. Once the ensuing Adam Smasher boss fight is done with, you can go back to where Rogue made her last stand and pick up the Pride pistol. The Pride will end up in your inventory if you decide to play after the credits roll. I'm gonna butcher this one too. The outrageously powerful Xing Chong, a unique L69 Zuo. This is Adam Smasher's smart explosive shotgun. I'll correct myself on that with the actual weapon description. Fires explosive rounds that rip enemies to shreds. The explosive rounds that come out of this shotgun will seek targets as long as you're in range and you have the smart targeting cyberware. And as a note on those explosive projectiles, they are similar to that of the prototype Shingen Mark V explosive rounds, meaning a small explosion when they impact with anything, as opposed to the O5's explosive tipped bullets that explode only when impacting an enemy. To be less descript, Xing Chong can make anything combustible combust immediately. As a pretty big negative to the Xing Chong, this comes as a crafting spec rather than the weapon itself. So if your technical ability isn't 18 and you don't have the Edgerunner Artisan perk, this smart shotgun might be out of your reach for a while or for good. If you do have the perks and attributes, this should come with 4 mod slots, and that's 4 general to stack that damage even higher. Its bonus crit damage is also well above 100, and just, well, you can see it. It comes with so many goodies that you'd wonder why you didn't get it earlier. Well, now we get to that part. Probably the most disappointing weapon that you would want to use throughout other sections of the game. Well, unfortunately, you can't until you've beaten the game once. The Xing Chong spec is located in Adam Smasher's vault aboard the Ebenika, the same place you got Johnny's gun. But to get access to this vault, you need to take on one of the final missions in which you defeat Adam Smasher. That's pretty much any of them. And only after you defeat Smasher is when you can loot the access token off of him to gain entry into the vault. So step by step, you must beat the game with whatever ending you choose that ends in Adam Smasher's demise, choose to continue playing after the credits roll, then go back to the Ebenika on the docks, and on the opposite side of where you fought Grayson will be Adam Smasher's vault, now able to be opened. Inside there will be many rare weapons and some of Adam Smasher's gear to look at, but most importantly among these weapons will also be the Xing Chong spec in the weapons crate. On the upside, you can use it the next time you raid the Arasaka building, so I guess there is that. We're past ending spoiler territory, and now we move on to the 8 iconic crafting specs that you can get from the organized crime activity hustles. Not only are some of these among the most powerful weapons in the game, but all 8 of them have a spot in your stash display. So let's get started with those. The Buzzsaw powers submachine gun, the iconic DS1 Pulsar with a blue and yellow paint job, and does what it is. The description says it's a unique bod that allows you to fire high penetration rounds, so this just has punch through, it goes through solid objects, it goes through enemies, it's a buzzsaw. The ones I had crafted said they had bonus ricochet chance as well, but when it punches through things it doesn't seem like ricochet even works or is necessary. This starts as a rare or blue crafting spec, so at the earliest, if you have a technical skill of 5 and the True Craftsman perk and the materials, you can craft a Buzzsaw, and it comes with the rarity increase specs as well. Also at the start, it has a scope slot, a muzzle slot, and a general mod slot. The Buzzsaw crafting spec is dropped by Yelena Sidorova, a scavenger's boss in one of the Watson Northside organized crime activity hustles, with enemies scaled around level 8 to 10, not far from the market in this area. Yelena is a netrunner type, so she will avoid going toe-to-toe, sometimes using the cameras of the area to hack V from the shadows. Next is the Power Assault Rifle spec known as the Psalm 11-6. It is described as pure hellfire. This gun deals additional thermal damage, greatly increasing the chance to apply burn. If you enjoyed the Fenrir SMG that also applied burn damage, the Psalm 11-6 is an assault rifle improved version of that, with a higher burn chance overall. Because its crafting spec starts at rare too, it'll be cheaper to keep scaled to your level in the long run. This is another spec that starts as rare, meaning 1 scope, 1 muzzle, and 1 general mod slot, and it's craftable as soon as you have the technical skill of 5 and the True Craftsman perk. The Psalm 11-6 spec is dropped by Tom Ayer in another Watson Northside organized crime event not far from the market and is scaled to around level 8 to 10. This is a strange one because to get this organized crime to appear, I needed to complete the previous one because they're roughly a block from each other. But it did show up immediately after defeating Yelena and getting the Buzzsaw spec. Tom Ayer, the Maelstrom leader, who drops the spec for the Psalm 11-6, is a melee class enemy with Mantis Blades as his primary weapons, and while keeping distance from him isn't too difficult, it's his Maelstrom goons that could draw the fight out. Those of you going for the up-close classic feel may be looking for the Sovereign double-barreled shotgun. When crafted, the Sovereign comes with a reduced reload time and bullet spread, and while aiming down sights you'll fire both rounds instead of just one. This is the closest to Doom's super shotgun that we get, and it's not bad. It comes with a natural bleeding chance, and I also noticed that there's a tiny bit of a random factor with the stats that it comes with, because at least one of them that I crafted had a increased headshot damage modifier too. And there's nothing stopping you from save scum crafting anyway. Put that on top of a crit damage modifier, and you're going to be doing a ton of damage as long as you can get up close. Sovereign is the first of these specs that starts at epic rarity, meaning that you'll need to have a technical skill of 12 and the crafting perk known as Grease Monkey in order to craft it. It also starts with 2 general mod slots, and from what I can tell, if you're modifying damage with, say, a crunch mod, the damage seems to be exponential because it applies to each pellet rather than per shot. Like the others, the Sovereign spec is dropped by another organized crime activity crime leader, Shinobu Imai, scaled around level 8 to 10, located in Westbrook, Japantown, a little ways south from Jig Jig Street and the H8 Tower. Shinobu Imai does not wait in the shadows and is a bit of an assault type and tends to dash around the arena, hanging around the back room covered by plastic curtains. A M2038 iconic tactician shotgun that I keep going back to is the Headsman. This epic rarity iconic looks painfully average, but has an emphasis on the pain. Double, in fact, because it fires twice the projectiles per shot, with an increased chance of dismemberment and bleeding, has a reduced reload time, but as a trade-off, has a lower rate of fire and ammo capacity. This is a power shotgun, so it does have a ricochet effect, but I want to draw attention to the insanely high bleed chance. That's pretty much guaranteed if you are aiming anywhere near your target, thanks to the amount of projectiles with a 30% chance or higher. Earlier I was complaining about the mocks doing most things wrong. The Headsman does nearly everything right. For modding, the Headsman starts with a scope slot and 2 general mod slots, and requires the epic crafting perk Grease Monkey if you plan to make it, meaning you need a technical skill of 12 or higher. Upping the zone difficulty a little bit with the organized crime activities, you can find the Arasaka mech, which carries the Headsman spec, at the Impala Automatics grounds in the North Oak region of Westbrook. The mech is located on the east side of the grounds, inside of what looks to be a maintenance or manufacturing building. There are engineers and other robotic defenses around, including turrets. Hacking, EMP grenades, and heavy machine guns that you can remove from the turrets are advised when taking on the defenses here. The next iconic's name is either a typo or a play on words that I don't know. Moron Labe, an iconic black painted variant of the power assault rifle, the M251S Ajax. It has an increased fire rate with a chance to dismember the target, and the ones I had crafted had all come with a 6% bleeding chance. With a high rate of fire weapon like this, a bleeding chance that low is passable and usable. But we did just talk about the Headsman. This rifle starts at epic when it is crafted, which means you're required to have the Grease Monkey perk, and by extension a technical skill of 12, and it starts with a scope slot, muzzle slot, and 2 general mod slots. The spec for the Moron Labe is dropped by Anton Kolev, an organized crime activity leader located in Pacifica, specifically the West Wind Estate region. This one's easy enough to find, just go to the southwest edge of Pacifica and you'll be there. And this is a pretty open space, but there are other scavengers in the area that will come running if they hear shots around Anton Kolev's gang. Kolev is a heavy weapons type, but it turns out he and his crew are extremely susceptible to fire, so anything fire-based will take care of them in short order. The ruinous Nekomata tech rifle, known as Breakthrough, can be argued as the strongest sniper rifle in the game. Another short weapon description: can penetrate through walls, we knew this, and ricochet multiple times. So it's a mixture of a tech rifle and a power anything besides a sniper that can ricochet off of stuff still. All three that I crafted came with a 6% bleeding chance, not terribly useful due to the rate of fire of something like this, but it also had an astronomical headshot damage multiplier between 3 and 5.4 times damage. With things like ping and marking with your scanner to see enemies through walls, you'll be able to easily make those headshots and not have to come out from your cover that is an entire building. Breakthrough starts as an epic crafting spec, meaning you'll need Grease Monkey and the technical skill of 12 in order to make it yourself, and it comes with 3 mod slots, 1 scope, and 2 general. If tech and sniping is your jam, then Breakthrough is your peanut butter. Or is it the bread? That's just a bad metaphor. Let's move on to the location. The crafting spec for the iconic Breakthrough Tech Sniper Rifle is dropped by Olga Elizabeth Longmead, a 6th Street leader in organized crime activity in the Rancho Coronado area of Santo Domingo. Difficulty scaled to roughly level 18. By appearance, this just looks to be some 6th Streeters having a cookout, but they're human traffickers, which they have hidden in a bunker in the backyard, so not everything is as it seems. Olga is a shotgun user, so a bit more painful up close, but thanks to the space to move around and plentiful cover, taking down her and her crew shouldn't be too difficult, as long as you're around level 18. Now let's talk about the strongest handgun in the game, bar none, when it comes to raw damage. This is the tech revolver known as the Comrade's Hammer, an iconic of the Russian-made RT-46 Burya. The tooltip says it has a modified clip that contains only a single bullet laden with explosive material that wreaks havoc at the point of impact. Reloading this monster requires additional time. I know this is still modeled after a tech revolver, but is it considered a revolver if it doesn't revolve because it only holds 1 bullet and you just replace the whole cylinder when you reload it? I don't know. The logistics don't matter as much as the power of this thing. At max level, I was crafting Comrade's hammers that would deal over 3,000 damage per shot. Aside from the Comrade's hammer punching through pretty much any solid object, entire buildings, traffic, what have you, its explosive rounds share the same effect as the 05 Power Sniper, mentioned much earlier in this guide, creating an explosion on impact when it's an enemy, but not vehicles or objects. If Breakthrough was the strongest long arm, the Comrade's Hammer is the strongest small arm, if you can even call it that. The Comrade's Hammer is dropped by Darius Miles, a 6th Street gang leader, as part of one of the organized crime activity hustles in the Arroyo area of Santo Domingo. The difficulty of this one is scaled around level 20. Darius Miles is an assault type with a lot of movement enhancements, but has a weakness to poison. A portion of his crew in this loading area appear to be chemists rather than combatants and shouldn't be too much of an issue. Just be wary of the combustibles in the area because there's apparently a lot of them being used to make drugs. Last of the iconics is the legendary Yinglong Smart Submachine Gun. This is another Arasaka submachine gun with a white paint job and red warning labels, and it states it deals additional electrical damage with a small chance to apply an EMP on impact. Its stats read out to reflect this with some additional electrical damage. I couldn't get Yinglong to keep up with other weapons of its caliber. This will still have its place against enemies that are weak to electricity, like robots, Maelstrom, and Valentinos, and as an automatic plus, it has 4 general mod slots because it is a crafted legendary. But costs are steep too. You need the Edge Runner Artisan perk to be able to craft it, which means a technical ability of 18. But at this point, it's about the collection, isn't it? The spec for the Yinglong is dropped by Denzel Cryer in the Wellsprings area of Haywood on the southwest side. The organized crime activity that happens here is around level 26, and the enemies you'll be dealing with are animals alongside Denzel himself being an animal. So expect roided out sponges. As we take one final look of V's choice iconic weapons display in their apartment stash. I want to say first how much I appreciate you for making it to the end of this guide, and it's not just that this is the longest one I've made to date, but it is also probably the most time consuming, because I have a habit of applying extra work to things that don't need it. But if you are a fellow creator or wiki editor, you can reap the benefits from this, because the 40-odd screenshots that I stitched together of the in-game map to show locations in this video is completely free for you to use and linked down below, because I feel that nobody else should have to go through that. So I'll ask you what your favorite iconic throughout Cyberpunk 2077 has been. So please share in the comments, and if you enjoyed this guide and want more like this, please do whatever it is you see fit to show that. But among the things that help a lot is going to patreon.com/Katogenesis and supporting with as little as a buck. Every little bit helps out the channel, and amazing supporters like Wasteland Legends Fen and the others on screen now, you'll get to be part of those credits, get exclusive access to unlisted content, monthly updates that include my face, Discord chat rooms and roles, and more. If that's not your thing, liking, sharing, and commenting helps out greatly. Thank you so very much for watching. I am Katogenesis, and may you wander Night City like you own it.